Welcome back to AutoScoop with your host, Adam Goldfein.
Welcome back to AutoScoop. I'm Adam Goldfein. We are being joined by Richard Griffin, one of Atlanta's top personal injury attorneys, to talk about how do you know if you have a great case? How do you know if you have damages that you're entitled to recover? And not just limited to motor vehicle accidents. It could be you're on a bicycle. It could be you slip and fall in a store. It could be a company event. It's really any situation where you're injured, as you were saying, and it's at the cause of somebody else, or in some situations, which I find fascinating, that no negligence required if it's at work or in a work-related, it's kind of like, what do they call that, strict liability? Is that really the deal, where it's you got hurt at work, therefore you're entitled to workers' comp?
It's exactly that. Workers' comp is sort of where the Georgia legislatures and each state has their own statute which provides for workers' comp. So each one's a little different. But basically the idea was to eliminate the burden of the worker having to prove that the employer was negligent. If you get hurt on the job, maybe you're on the roof and you trip and slip and fall off the roof and you have a catastrophic injury. Well, under the old system, if it was under personal injury, you'd have to prove that the employer or the homeowner or someone knew about a defect that should have been taken care of. Well, that's a burden a lot of people wouldn't be able to prove. So you'd be out of luck with getting your medical expenses paid if there was not workers' comp. You wouldn't have any lost wages paid if there was not workers' comp. You wouldn't have any impairment, permanent partial disability benefits if there wasn't workers' comp.
So if you have this statute for workers' comp, and before we get into the damages, it begs the question, what do I need you for?
Well, the fact of the matter is that adjusters will deny a claim right at the beginning. Oh. They don't have to accept compensability. They can say, well, we think maybe you were outside your scope of employment, maybe you're on a personal errand. The facts are very, very specific. They're supposed to start income benefits within 20 days of the first date of disability. That oftentimes does not occur.
So are the remedies that an individual receives different whether or not they have representation or they do it alone?
Well, absolutely. I think without representation, you're pretty much at the mercy of the adjuster as to what they want to pay. The amount that they pay is supposed to be 2/3 for an income benefit, 2/3 of your average weekly wage based on the 13 weeks prior to the date of the accident. Well, that's a fact that most workers wouldn't know. Adjusters sometimes they calculate it incorrectly, and you end up getting underpaid or not paid at all. It's amazing. The other thing about workers' comp that's interesting is even if they do start paying your benefits, maybe they pay them late, maybe they pay them too little, there's the whole medical side of it. You know, they'll often send you to a doctor. Well, the Workers' Comp Act says that you have the right, if you're an injured worker, to select your own doctor from the posted panel. Well, you're not necessarily told that. You're supposed to be, but a lot of employers don't know what to do when someone's hurt, and they don't do that. You just go where the adjuster sends you. You're entitled to one free change of physician to another panel doctor. If you don't know that, you don't ever get it. You're entitled to an independent medical examination with a doctor of your choice if you've got an income benefits.
So you're really, it's like you're the advocate telling them all their Bill of Rights.
And it's amazing because workers will often state, well, I just didn't know. Nobody told me. Right. Well, the insurance company does not have the duty to tell all of your rights. You have the duty to hire an attorney so that you know the rights, so that your rights are going to be protected. The other thing in workers' comp and personal injury and Social Security disability, all of those, is if you don't have an attorney, you're also kind of at the mercy of if there's going to be a settlement at all.
You mentioned an interesting fact to me one time about a study that the insurance companies did, you know, looking at how much money they ended up paying, whether the person had an attorney or didn't have an attorney. And I know I'm kind of like grabbing you offside, but wasn't it something like it was 3 times higher, I recall?
It was 3.5 times
3.5 times higher.
And it was from an insurance company study. And from my personal experience, I think that's extremely low. I think people end up getting shortchanged a lot worse than that.
So in other words, and let's use easy numbers, okay? If I would have gotten $10,000 alone, according to their study, I would have gotten $35,000 with you.
Correct.
And you're saying it's low. If I would have gotten $10,000 alone, I could have gotten $50,000 or $100,000 with you.
Well, there's a case I can think of right now that they had offered $50,000 without an attorney. And then we ended up getting it resolved for $1 million. So $50,000 to $1 million. You know, the bigger the case, the more I can help. And the
bigger you really did that?
Absolutely.
I mean, what did the person? What did they say to you? I mean, they're sitting here thinking they can handle it. I'm Superman. I got the whole thing covered, right? And they got a $50,000 offer. How does the insurance company justify going from 50 to $1 million? That's not even close.
Well, on that case, that was the refrigerator case.
Okay.
And so they basically were making arguments to the jury that the homeowners should have, even though they paid to have a professional install it, and that was a part of the purchase, they paid good money for that, they should have somehow been there when it was delivered, gotten the paperwork, examined and read the installation manual to make sure that the professional installer
That's why you hire the professional.
Right. But that was one of their arguments. So early on, they're like, we aren't even at fault. You should have been looking over our shoulder, so to speak, to make sure we did it right. And to me, that was an outrageous, ridiculous argument. Luckily, the jury, after the closing argument, agreed.
There you go. Well, but what's nice is that you have the ability to kind of take them to the mat. So do me a favor. Let's walk down some damages if we can. What are the things that, if someone's injured, can they look to receive, or what should they be recovering?
Well, on a personal injury case, and again, that can be a pedestrian hit. That we've had big cases that way. We've had big cases involving motorcycles and 18-wheelers, and and personal injury cases involving slip and falls and other things. But what they're going to be looking at is first your medical expenses, all the treatment for your past medical expenses, and then it's important, and we try to make sure we get the doctors to give a prognosis. What's the future going to?
So I shouldn't be worried that that I shouldn't wait for everything to kind of flush out. I can get money even today for tomorrow's medical expenses.
You can, and there's a statute of limitations of 2 years from the date of the accident. I think it's very dangerous to wait and get closer to the deadline of where you'll have no case if it goes beyond the 2 years. You need to have an attorney involved early. We're going to do a lot more than just be there to wait till you finish treating. We're going to make sure that the treatment you're getting is consistent and reasonable, that you're getting all the treatment you need, that you get to the specialist that you need to see.
Well, here's the thing. We're getting into medical and we're getting into damages. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll find out what more you can recover, especially if you've got a big claim. You're watching AutoScoop on CW 69. Welcome back to AutoScoop. I'm Adam Goldfein. We're talking with Richard Griffin, who is one of Atlanta's top personal injury attorneys, on how do you know if you have a great case. I mean, God forbid you get injured. How do you get compensated? What are you entitled to? And one of the best things that Richard does for our viewers is anybody out there who has a family member or they themselves have been involved in an accident, we encourage you to call him. He'll talk to you personally. There is no charge. I think it's important that folks understand before they act and what direction they go, almost to have that evaluation, right? What are my options? Because as we say, we can't cover every factual situation here. But I think that people deserve the one-on-one attention to say, Mr. Griffin, this is what happened to me. And what do you think my case is worth? And we started talking that you'll help them with medical damages, not only past medical damages, medical expenses, but future medical expenses. What other types of damages would you recover?
Well, there's also the lost wages that you might have because you're disabled from work due to your injuries. Maybe it's just going all the time you have to go to the doctor, the therapies. You're missing time from work. That's dollars that you are not getting paid that you would have normally gotten. Lost wages, past and future, are a big part. So you've got medical, past and future. You've got lost wages, past and future. And the future is the part that it really sometimes is hard to nail down, but that's part of what I do because that's a real part of the claim. The largest claims are going to always have future lost wages for the most part because the largest claims are going to be where people are totally disabled or they're going to have ongoing work restrictions.
Okay.
So those, you've got the medical expenses past and future, you've got the lost wages past and future. You also have pain and suffering, which is something that you're entitled to. It's not something that you're not entitled to. It's something that the jury can consider. And basically that is trying to put a dollar amount on what you've been through, whether it's the physical pain, whether it's the negative impact it's had on your life, your ability to spend time with your kids. I know I've got 4 daughters that, being with them, playing with them in the backyard, spending time with them, being a daddy to them is very, very important. Well, that is a very valuable thing to me. And if someone has an injury that takes that away from them or takes away their ability to be the spouse that they would normally be, those have real dollar amounts, real values. And the way you prove that to a jury is typically with before and after witnesses, which are witnesses that can say, this is what a snapshot of his life was like or her life was like before this accident. And now he isn't able to do all these things that he loved to do so much or she loved to do so much. So
and they'll pay money for that.
And that is an amount, it's sometimes calculated on a certain dollar amount per day for the rest of your life. I mean, there's different ways to evaluate the way, if something is permanently taken from you, what that should be worth.
So your job, you go to battle, you strap on the shield and you got the sword, and you're going to go up against typically the insurance carrier, right? So of the person or the company, the entity that is determined to be responsible or had the duty to prevent or to try to prevent the harm, right? And I'm sure there are times when you go to trial, and I'm sure there are times that you settle the case on behalf of your client. Not every case goes to trial. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. So how do you know what they're worth? Because like we're telling people call you, and are you pulling this number out of the air? Are you looking it up in the dictionary? I mean, can I look it up myself? Should I be on the internet doing self-help? Like everybody is today. They think that they got the internet, they're done.
Well, absolutely. I don't think you should do that. I've had clients where they will get on the internet and start searching for things. That is, hit or miss. You're not going to get the kind of information that a trial attorney can do. First of all, I've got the fact that I have done this for 15 years or more, so I know from my own personal experience what kind of verdicts and settlements I've gotten, and I'm a champion member of the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association, so we can pull our, communicate with one another and kind of verify what we think a case is worth with the specific facts. But also, one of the things that I've recently done is I have started using 2 different jury verdict and settlement services where they basically do surveys and go to the courthouses and read all of the jury verdicts that are entered into the courts, and then they talk to attorneys and find out what those settlements are. And they try to do it as thoroughly as they can all over the country, but of course my focus is Georgia. Well, with that gives me some incredibly useful information, and it gives the client some great information. It can, with the client, help me explain what the case is worth and why, which is a moving target. A case is always worth what a jury is likely to award for those damages, those facts.
Okay.
That's a moving target. It isn't the same 10 years ago as it is now.
It could go up, it could go down.
Up, it could go down. Okay. But when you're deciding the important decision of settling a case, ending it and taking a lump sum amount, or whether you're going to litigate the case and put it in the hands of a jury to see what happens, it's very, very helpful to me and to my clients for me to be able to search that. They can't do it. I can. It's a very expensive service, and basically it gives them the information.
I haven't heard of other attorneys, and they may be doing it. I don't know, but I haven't really heard of guys talking about the fact that when they get down and they're sitting there with in a settlement, and the insurance carrier is saying no, or they're saying it's not worth that much, and you're saying really? Well, Mrs. Jones over here, Mrs. Smith over here, Mrs. Franklin over here, and kind of laying it out for them to say, let's get this done, because I would imagine that the quicker you can get the compensation for the injured party, probably the better for them.
Absolutely, and it's certainly an invaluable resource, because when you are in mediation or settlement negotiations with the adjuster or with their defense attorneys that are hired to defend the case, giving them specific examples. We had a case where there was a vein issue where the injury caused some damage to the leg and caused them to be unable to be mobile. Well, it took about maybe 4 months for that to become a circulatory issue.
Right.
Well, the adjuster immediately said that's not related, da-da-da. Well, there were a string of cases where that specific circulatory issue was held to be a injury from an accident and had at least the medical covered.
So that kind of turned the tide for you.
We went from $3,500 on that case to $80,000, and that was partly because of that research and because we were able to get the doctors to give causation statements.
How many of you at home have been told your case isn't worth what you believe in your heart it's worth? If that's you, call the number and have a private consultation. We'll be back with more with Richard Griffin and AutoScoop after these quick messages.